Matthew 1:23 says there, "Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel," which being interpreted is God with us. I've often sort of puzzled about that scripture because as I've read the Gospels, I don't remember one time that anybody ever called Jesus Emmanuel. They called him Jesus. They called him the Christ. They called him the Son of Man. They called him sometimes the Son of God. They called him all kinds of things, but nobody ever called him Emmanuel. So what was this all about? Well, I don't think it was so much that it was going to be his name. It was who he was. And yes, indeed, he was God with us. John, the first chapter, makes that very clear. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then in verse 14 it says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, glory as of the one and only of the Father, full of grace and truth." In the book of Hebrews it says that he had to be made like his brothers in every way, and that he would be tempted in every way like we are, and yet without sin. So there's no question that the theology of the New Testament presents Jesus, the man, as God in the flesh, as God with us. That was the only way, in a sense, that the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross could be effective in taking away the sins of all mankind, is that it wasn't just a man who died on the cross. It was God who died on the cross, and the infinite sacrifice that he made was enough to cover an infinite number of sins. So what does God want us to do in response to that? In a way, there's nothing that we can do that could ever pay back the magnitude of the sacrifice which Jesus Christ made. And that's true. But that doesn't mean that there's no sense in trying. That what God would like for us to do is to live our lives in such a way that it brings glory to Emmanuel, God with us.
Who are we that you would be mindful of us? What do you see that's worth looking our way?
We are free, and we
In 1999, Michael W. Smith co-authored a song with a man named Wes King. I guess it was immediately and directly in response to the killings in Columbine High School in Colorado. And they performed this song, they sang this song at several of the memorial services for students killed in that incident. And especially one young lady whose name was Cassie Burnell. In the music video that went out accompanying this song, they had a videotaped testimony from Cassie Burnell about the meaning of her faith in her life and her belief in God and things like that. And I suppose when they videotaped that, they had a little way of knowing how significant that would ultimately be. But the story goes that as the gunman was going through the school killing people, that he would ask someone, "Do you believe in God?" And then if they said yes, he would shoot them. And Cassie Burnell heard this happening, and he comes up to her and says, "Do you believe in God?" Now, I don't know about you, but I think at that moment in time, I would be experiencing what could easily be called a crisis of faith. You know? Now you're sort of like, okay, I've seen what happens if you say yes, and I believe in God, but, you know, am I prepared to say so and die at this point? You know, and I don't know. It might be your whole life would sort of go before your eyes at that time, but not only the life that you've already had, all the things you dreamed about doing and thought you might become. But Cassie Burnell said yes, and the man shot her. Well, now I don't suppose that any of us in this room have ever had that same kind of an experience. At least not in that quite as dramatic a fashion. But I suspect that many of us have had that in a different way, where there have been challenges to our faith where people, in a sense, asked us to compromise what we really believe in or else suffer consequences for it. And if we really stand up for Jesus Christ and stand strong in our faith, it is going to cost us something. There will be repercussions. And I suppose in those kind of situations, we always think, yes, I would be strong enough to say, yes, I believe in God. Yes, I do. And I hope and pray that we would. But what I hope and pray for even more, because I think that event is very unlikely to happen, is I hope and pray that we're able to recognize those kind of events when they happen to us day by day, every day of our lives, when people would undercut our faith and ask us to compromise in just little ways, where we would say, no, I believe in Jesus Christ. This is my time. This is my choice. I'm going to live for Him.